Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. For those of you who are attending live, and it's also being recorded, so thank you if you're watching this at a later time. I'm Norman Charpentier, a professional videographer, photographer, and visual marketing strategist, media guy. I've been working with businesses for over 20 years, showcasing and helping them elevate their brands. Today we're diving into a question that's always a big question. How much should I invest, or how much should I plan to invest in my marketing? In this session, we'll cover the importance of a marketing budget. We'll also cover how to set your marketing budget and the marketing channels, where you should spend, and also a little bit of homework to get you started, because next week we're going to have a follow-up part 2 on this webinar. So before we get started, I'd like to know, if you're catching this live, I'd like to have your input. What's your biggest marketing challenge? And if you're getting this at a later time, just let me know in the comments. It's always fun to have some kind of feedback from business owners. All right, let's get started. So first of all, I'd like to address the all-time question: why is it important to have a marketing budget? So I'm going to switch on my iPad, and we're going to talk about a few points. First point: why every business needs a marketing budget. The number one thing, I think, is consistency. So there's always something. Give me a second, guys. My iPad pen is not working, so that's a bit of a bummer. Give me a second. I'm gonna go back here and reset this. That's the fun of being live. Okay, for some reason there's something with my pen. All right. Well, I'm not gonna be able to write on my iPad, but that's okay. I'm gonna go verbal, and you can take notes. So why is it important for you guys to have a budget? So the number one thing, I think, is consistency, because it drives growth. If you're not consistent enough, people are going to forget, and your competitors are going to reap their own marketing efforts. So without a dedicated marketing budget, you can't expect consistency. So that's the number one thing, I think, is super important. So that drives the second comment. It's better ROI and smart spending. If you're planning ahead, if you know you have this budget, you want to optimize it, you're going to spend on your marketing efforts, and you're going to monitor, and you're going to create some and get some metrics that you can work on and improve. So over time, and there's no magical recipe with marketing, but over time, if you have this budget and you work on it and work on it and work on it, you optimize it, and you get better results. Whereas if you just throw in Facebook ad and you expect some results, and then you forget about it, you go 6 months later and things change, move, evolve, you're never up to date on your marketing efforts. So that's a second most important thing. Also, having a marketing budget allows you to be competitive. Like I said in the first point, in contrast to maybe your competitors are doing that on a need basis and not a consistent basis. If you are consistent, you're in the face of your customers all the time, and that allows you to reap the benefits over time and take some shares on the market. I would say, if I move down, the difference between organic and paid. That's also important because when you start, you don't necessarily have a full-blown marketing budget, but you should definitely at least start with some marketing in your organic versus paid. So paid is good, but organic is probably the best way to start. Being organic allows you to focus on the content first and allows you to see what works, what doesn't, and it allows you to gather some metrics on your marketing that will allow you to get better results when you get to the paid marketing efforts. So that's something to consider if you're just starting out in your efforts, your marketing efforts. You start with organic. And my previous webinar, if you've watched it, we talked about DIY content versus professional content. I think there's a place for both. So there could be a strategy, and that's what the following next week's webinar is going to be about. The real strategy, how to actually create a content and marketing strategy so you can reap the benefit of organic marketing versus paid. And organic is not like it should be your basis, and then on top of that you add paid marketing. So that's something you can ramp up, and that's also next week's webinar when we talk about scaling your efforts. So that's the difference. Now the common mistakes, I had 4, but I can't write, so I'm going to tell you the 4 common mistakes. It's like fill in the blanks. The common mistakes in marketing is spending too little. If you don't spend enough, you're not going to have the exposure that you need or the consistency that you need. Sometimes it's not all about exposure, but consistency. So if you spend just a little bit, maybe you're going to be able to have 1 or 2 videos every 6 months, and that's not enough. Unfortunately, you need more. Either you do it professionally or DIY, it doesn't matter, but you need to spending time doing the work of, preparing your marketing and creating content and creating the visuals and media, or spending the money to get a professional to do it, or spending the money to have a professional social media manager, and so on and so on. So spending too little won't allow you to have the expected results, and spending too much is not good either, because you want to optimize, and that money could be redirected into different departments. I just said it a few times already. In marketing, you want to be consistent. You want to be that person that's always there in the face of your customers in a good way, meaning you're providing insights, you're providing knowledge, or whatever you're selling, you're there when they need to see you. And I would say the 4th and probably the most important aspect is to forget to plan for that in your business expense or forecast. I've seen a lot of businesses, they try to wing their marketing budget. Whenever they have a little bit left at the end of the day, profits, they re-inject a little bit. But you should consider marketing a priority in your budget item. So it should be itemized whenever you do your business plan, whenever you do your business forecast and budget forecast. You should always plan a certain amount for your marketing. So that's super important. Those are the common mistakes. Now, if we talk about how to set your marketing budgets, that's always the $100,000 question. How do you set your marketing budget? So there's a very complex way to do this, which is goal-based. And if you do business with a marketing agency, they'll probably want to do a goal-based approach. A goal-based approach is looking at your competitors, the industry, and you're doing a competitive benchmarking. So you're getting those ratios. It's not too complicated, but you need access to information. Most of the time, if you're just starting out in your marketing journey, you don't have access to that information. So unfortunately, it calls for the extensive marketing budget. If you want to have access to a goal-based approach, you usually need a fair amount of money to hire the right professionals to do that, because they have access to information. Sometimes they service your competitors, so they know what works and what doesn't, and that's goal-based. And then it comes with, like I said, extensive knowledge of the marketing metrics that you need. In contrast, there's always a good old simplistic way, which is the percentage method, and a good I would say a good a number is anywhere from 5% to 10% of your gross. So if you're thinking that you may generate $100,000 in revenue or $200,000, you should plan for at least a 5% to a 10% in terms of budget. So once you have that budget set in, you're also, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, you can make your quotes according to that, because it's part of your expenses, so you need to quote accordingly. So percentage method is very simple, and it lets you learn and refine your marketing strategy. So you have a budget, you're going to need to spend it, because that's part of the plan, and you can start small. You can try and you can see what works, what doesn't. It allows you to get that information from the market, from your audience, from the people that are actually watching or are consuming your content, or whatever that it is that you're producing in terms of marketing, and you see what works. So that being said, starting with a percentage method is probably the easiest and smoother way to start with a marketing strategy. You have a budget, you plan it, you say, okay, I'm going to allow for 10% of my budget this year, $20,000, so I'll set aside $2,000 or $1,500 for every month, and then I can work with this. And you don't have to plan the whole year. You can just start with $1,500 this month. What do I do with it? Let's try, let's see what works, and let's readjust the following month. So usually the best way to start is percentage method. Now, if we talk about the marketing channels, where should you spend? That's also a very good question. It's sometimes people refer to this as distribution network. For example, one thing my clients always have a question for is, once I have a video, what do I do with it? How do I post it? Where do I expose this video for maximum results? So there's no one fit all answer to this, and that goes back to your percentage method. If you're just starting, you're going to need to try. You're going to need to try out what works. Obviously, there's certain things. If you call me, I'm going to tell you what usually works, because I've been in business for a long time and have had clients that tried a few things, so I usually know. But the type of content, the approach, the way you do it, and so forth, so many things. So marketing channels that we can talk about are the essentials. So again, I had planned a beautiful iPad presentation, but it's okay. Essentials. So we talk about the general branding. So when you're talking about branding, you're talking about anything from the logo to your photo, professional photo, to the colors, to everything. And yes, I can help you with that. So you're talking about also the website. It's usually, I've had clients when they're redoing their website, they're redoing the photos and so on and so on. So it kind of triggers everything else. And I would say most of the time when you're doing a website, it usually is, okay, well, I have to think about my logo. I have to think about this and that. So if I would put it first, I would say maybe the website, and then it triggers a branding, making sure your brand is cohesive. It has all the good elements, the right colors, and so on. If you're a professional service business, you want to have headshots, professional headshots. You want to have the right attitude that transpires across the headshot and stuff like that. You also have, the content. You have a content-based strategy. Are you pushing content onto your audience to give them information and knowledge? Is that going to be social media based, like restaurants, for example? You need a set of photos in advance so you can post to trigger the right atmosphere that you're trying to convey through your posts, and so on and so on. So depending on what you're aiming at, and that's something we're going to talk about in next week's webinar, what you're aiming at is the audience, what they need, what do you think they need, and then you adjust according to the response on that. The second one is local marketing strategies. A lot of business underestimate the power of Google My Business. I've seen that a lot. If you just do it for yourself, just go online, look up your competitors, and look yourself up first, and look up your competitors. What is showing up on Google My Business? Because people are going to type whatever business, restaurant in West Island, and then you're going to have a list that shows up that Google pushes on you. When you click, you first have the reviews that are super important. You have user generated content, which is also super important. But if you scroll and you look, you have uploaded by the owner, and you have 360 tours. Those are tremendously important, and you want to renew this. Sometimes you're going to do it right from the get-go when you open your doors, but then you forget about it. It's all user generated content, so you need to renew this, because it's like anything else. I guess if you forgot about it, it gets pushed down the scroll list, and all you see is user generated. So you need to renew this and make sure you have a proper exposure on your local channels. Also local partnerships, collabs, and so on. That's always interesting. If you're a gym owner, maybe your fitness trainer is super influencer, so you may have a collab there. Nothing is free, but that sometimes is a good example to generate synergy between local partnerships. Then you have digital paid marketing. Don't want to spend too much time on that, because I'm assuming if you're still trying to figure out your budget, your marketing budget, and still trying to figure out how to go at a strategy, you may not be ready to have paid marketing. For example, social media posts that you push. You're better off, like I said at first, you're better off starting with just the organic, see what works. You're going to have some metrics, you're going to have views, you're going to have a bounce rate and whatnot. And then you can use this to refine the process, refine the content you're pushing and producing, and then you plan for the digital paid marketing, which would be anything from Google ads to social media ads, right? So that's the idea. So now if we're putting it all together, actually I should stay on my iPad. If we're putting it all together, your homework. So I have two things I want to ask you to do right now. Is every time you quote you quote a customer, make sure you incorporate your 5 to 10% budget marketing. That will marketing budget. That will allow you to make sure every time you get paid in the future, you actually have the money to entertain and keep on doing your marketing efforts. That's super important. It should be like filling up your car with gas. It should be the same thing. So you need to have that budget set in your quotes. So today, this weekend, next week, whenever you quote for anything, just add that 5%, 10%. So you're starting the wheel of your marketing effort. And the second, depending on your incubation time, sometimes I've had clients, their clients take forever to nurture. So it's anywhere from 1 month to 6 months, depending on your business. From now and that incubation time, how much money can you actually shred from here and there so you can start your marketing effort right now? And since you're going to quote with that 5-10% margin for marketing efforts, then whenever you get to that 6 month frame or whatever cash flow you have in your business, then you've already started. You already kind of know what's going on, and it will just start that wheel that will go faster and faster. So those are two things. Start now quoting with that 5 or 10% markup, and start now to see how much you can actually invest. It doesn't have to be $2,000, $3,000, but can you start? Where can you start? So at least you have that. And it doesn't have to be money. It could just be, okay, I'm going to start doing some of the things myself, DIY, like we talked about in the last webinar. But at least you need to have a plan and a consistent. So budget that time-wise or money-wise and start quoting so you actually have money, dollars, to invest in your marketing efforts. Those are two things that I would like to for you to do right now. And on that note, I would like to invite you for my next webinar, which will be next week in actually 6 days on Tuesday. I'm changing the pace because my schedule is getting a little bit all over the place. So March 25th, I'm going to try to make it 11. I was kind of late for today's webinar. So next week, March 25th, 11 a.m. That's a date. Be there, because next week we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you actually examples, case studies. We're going to go over case studies, some examples of businesses that can incorporate the marketing efforts, some kind of return on investment, and we'll go over on how to scale your efforts. So you can start here, go up, get results, go scale up, scale up, scale up. I kind of give you an idea. Now you can start DIY, incorporate your quotes in your quotes and markup for the marketing budget, and then you can scale that way. And if things go even faster, there are ways to actually get more results quicker than not. So that's a date. I'm gonna try to post it as soon as possible on LinkedIn so you can RSVP it. And on that note, I don't see any questions right now, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative. Please, if you take this at a later time, let me know in the comments if you had any questions, or if you want to reach out, please do so. It's easy to reach out to me.